Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update. Guys, we are going to be talking about brutal cold over the next couple of days. This morning, we've got temperatures down into the negative 30s across the northern plains. We are looking at a warm-up as we work into the extended range, but I think it's brief because I think that there is more winter to be had as we work into early March, and we'll talk about that as we go throughout this forecast video. We'll also chat about whether we'll have additional wintry weather chances, and then maybe a first look at some severe weather down the road as we get into the middle part of March. So be sure to stay tuned for those two notes later on in this video. But let's start here. Let's start out with the extreme cold this morning. And, I don't use that word lightly. When you're talking about temperatures down into the negative 30s, negative 38 degrees, we can zoom in here. Some areas getting down below negative 40 degrees. These are real temperatures. These are not feel-like temperatures. This is the actual air temperature right now across these areas. Down into the negative teens across northwest parts of Iowa, Nebraska, a couple of spots into the negative 20s. We've got below zero temperatures all the way down towards Amarillo, Texas, just north of Oklahoma City. That is crazy cold to get that far south in terms of below zero temperatures. And we take a look all the way down towards the Gulf Coast. We've got temperatures nearing the 20s and low 30s in the Houston metro area, all the way down towards southern parts of Texas, guys. It'll continue to be very cold as we work into tomorrow morning, guys. And we can see here, if we take a look, a lot of record-breaking cold across the region right now this morning. All of these blue dots that you see means the station is breaking their daily record low temperature, guys. I don't see any right now all-time monthly or all-time record low temperatures, but a lot of record-breaking cold this morning across the central part of the country. If we take a look at temperatures over the next few days, guys, we're going to have additional record-breaking cold likely as we work into tomorrow morning. We're talking about negative teens down into parts of Kansas. We've got below zero temperatures into Oklahoma and Arkansas. All of these circles, we've got 77 different stations forecasted to break their record low temperature for the day tomorrow morning. You can see single digits from Maine all the way to Texas, below zero across Montana, the Dakotas, Central Plains, and into parts of the Ohio Valley as well. As we work into Friday morning, we start to quote-unquote moderate. It's not quite as extreme, but still a lot of record-breaking cold lows across the southern tier of the U.S. and into parts of the Midwest. And then as we work into Saturday morning, we warm up a little bit into the single digits and into the teens across a good part of the northern United States, Northern Plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley, and into the Northeast. As we work into next week, let's look at highs here, guys. Take a look at the warm-up that's going to be expected. Here Saturday, still pretty chilly, but as we work into Sunday, Monday, and into Tuesday of next week, we're talking about 50s and 60s, pushing into some of these areas that are dealing with record-breaking cold right now. Talking about 50s all the way up into South Dakota, Iowa, the lower Ohio Valley, back into the 70s and 80s across parts of Texas. So this cold that we're dealing with the next several days, it does have an expiration date as we close out this weekend and work into early next week, and it'll feel a little bit more like spring for a time. If we take a look at the temperature anomalies compared to normal right now, over the next 24 to 48 hours, we're talking about temperatures 30 to 40 degrees below normal across the central part of the country. That's about as cold compared to normal as it can possibly get. That lingers into Friday, and then you can start to see some warmer air beginning to emerge across the Pacific Northwest and the northern tier of the U.S. That will help push this colder air out of the United States as we work into early next week. In fact, we should have several days of above normal temperatures in here, especially across the central and western U.S. It's the east that will continue to have some cold fronts as we close out the month. You can see that here towards the last day of February, late next week into the start of March. Still some colder air to deal with across the eastern third of the U.S., but milder across the western and central U.S. However, as we do go into early March, what we're going to start to see more frequent shots of colder air for the eastern half of the country beginning to reemerge. You can start to see the warmth out to the west beginning to moderate a little bit, guys. And then by the time we work into the back half of the first week of March, widespread colder than normal temperatures, especially for the eastern and southern tier of the U.S., reemerging. And I think winter is very much back on. I think that there's additional winter storm potential. and we go back into a colder pattern following a little bit of a taste of spring. This is something that we've been talking about for a while. There could be a brief moderation, but winter still has a lot of legs left in it, and I think that the first week or two of March certainly sees that verify. In terms of precipitation in the next 10 days, with the extreme cold, we're seeing a lot of suppression. There's probably going to be pesky clippers and light snow chances the next 10 days across parts of the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley. We're going to be seeing some of that in the short term, but all things considered, it's not a super active pattern the next 10 days. That will change as we get that cold to come back into the first week of March. You can start to see here the pattern getting a little bit more active, and so we will need to watch for winter storm opportunities across the Great Lakes, across the Midwest, across the Ohio Valley, and into the Northeast that first week of March. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, but I think that the general theme is cold and dry in the short term, warming up but not super active to close out the month of February, and then back to a colder pattern and getting more active again, which means those snow chances will come back as we start out the first week of March. Some of this is going to be driven by our tropical forcing. We're kind of slowing things down in MJO Phase 8 for a little bit, and that is, I think, aiding in a little bit of this warm-up to close out the month of February, but then we get into Phase 1, 2, 3, and eventually Phase 4, and here's what that will mean for the pattern progression ahead. Days 5 to 10 out through the end of February, you can see very similar to MJO Phase 8, warmer central and western part of the country. As we get into Phase 1, the first 5 days of March, we get this colder air to dive back into the eastern part of the country. I think for the week 2 time frame, in terms of heating demand, if you're looking at that, the GEFS is quite a bit colder than the EPS. However, I think the GEFS is too cold in the medium range. The EPS is too warm in the longer range. A mix of the two is the right idea. You can see Phase 1 favors that colder risk becoming a little bit more widespread again late week 2 into early week 3, and that should linger through the week 3 time frame as we deal with MJO Phase 2. In fact, more widespread cold possible in MJO Phase 2 and MJO Phase 3. But as we work into MJO Phase 4, that will be towards the week 4 period, especially the back half of the second week of March and beyond. We start to warm things up, and I think that this could come with a severe weather threat. With some colder air still to the north, warmer air building in south and east, we could be looking at an uptick in severe weather opportunities down the road, and the data is showing this quite nicely. So if we look at the start of March, you can see a little bit warmer west, colder east. This expands with time as we go throughout the first week of March into the start of the second week of March, and then towards the end of the second week of March and really towards the midway point of the month, that cold retracts north and west. We start to get a little bit warmer south and east, and it's this gradient, guys, that's going to lead to a couple of things. Probably winter storm potential up here, probably severe weather potential down across the deep south, and a very active pattern probably across the eastern part of the country. Here's ultimately how I think things average out. We showed this in our video yesterday, guys, and I think ultimately the progression here is a pretty chilly start to the time frame for much of the eastern U.S., probably even south as well. But we go into late the second week of March, and especially towards the midway point of the month, and we start to warm up across the south and east part of the country, which will lead to an active pattern. I think that there's numerous storms in here, severe weather potential south as we work towards the middle part of March, additional winter storm chances to the north, which we highlight here. Here's our medium range snow risk outlook, especially as we go through this colder stretch, guys, especially as we go through the first 9-10 days of March. I think above normal snow potential across the northern tier of the country, very likely. And then we start to transition towards the middle part of the month, guys. This is a look, and I know this is kind of a little bit of a messy map, but generally here what this is showing, these are our days where we've had MJO Phase 2, which we're going to get into, that have had severe weather outbreaks, basically. You can see when this setup happens, we tend to get a trough in the western U.S. and colder air, and some warmth south and east, a little bit of warmth up near Alaska, and some colder air over the Hudson Bay. If you take a look at the extended range forecast, guys, this is the 10th to the 20th of the month from the CFS, it matches up very, very closely with that analog. To me, and given some of the other background drivers that I see, I would anticipate a decent uptick in severe weather opportunities for the middle part of March. I think especially in this area down here. We take a look, here's where we drew it. Here's where I think there's increasing severe weather potential. Analogs in general for the spring favor above normal severe weather threats from the lower Ohio Valley down through the deep south. We updated those. We added in a year like 2011, which was a very, very hyperactive severe weather season. And I think that by March 10th, maybe as early as March 10th, maybe it's more like March 15th, but somewhere towards mid-March, we start to see this really tick up across the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, and into the deep south. And in fact, if we take a look here, this is the CFS Severe Weather Dashboard. All of its runs, it's starting to pick up on an uptick in activity. You can see that bump here. Down here, this is the 11th through the 18th or so of the month. You can see an uptick. Then you can see another uptick out towards the last week of March. And so keep an eye on this, guys, because I think that we could snap into more of a spring-like pattern in the east towards the back half of March, an active one, and more severe weather opportunities. Until then, guys, there's a lot of winter left in the cards through the first third or so of March. Probably some decent cold shots of air and additional winter storm potential. Winter is not quitting just quite yet, especially for the eastern U.S., at least until the middle part of March. Guys, before I go, I wanted to be sure to let you all know that next Wednesday, a week from today, we will be having our spring webinar. So our official spring outlook in terms of temperatures, precipitation, guys, severe weather potential, late frost and freeze. Would highly encourage you all to sign up. It's free to join, bamwx.com/webinar. We will have a full forecast. If you can't join us live, it's 11 a.m., you can get sent the recording if you do sign up. Seats are limited, so be sure to go sign up. bamwx.com/webinar. And if you're a business, would highly encourage you checking out our free trial that we're doing right now. Go to bamwx.com/get-started, and you can get your business a 14-day free trial for our service. Clarity Pro, meant for businesses, organizations, events that are making high-cost decisions. Would love to be able to help some of you all out. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.